the IDF has taken control of the strategic heights of Mount Hermon on both the Israeli and the Syrian sides of the border. Now, evaluations are being made to determine if this is sufficient to ensure Israel's security or if it is necessary to deepen the security zone. In the meantime, the Israeli Air Force is taking advantage of a moment when they have total freedom in the skies over Syria to target all the sites where Assad kept his chemical weapons infrastructure, ballistic missiles, and other strategic assets. At the same time, the Air Force also hit a convoy of over 100 Hezbollah vehicles moving weapons and ammunition out of Syria into neighboring Lebanon. In a related development, Ukraine revealed the Russian deception tactics which assisted Assad's escape from Syria to Russia, where he and his family have been given political asylum. Elsewhere, Israel is considering another significant strike in Yemen, while Iraq is refusing to allow Iran to use its territory to attack the Jewish state. And finally, we'll take a look at negotiations over a ceasefire and hostage release deal in the Gaza Strip. We've got a lot to talk about today, so let's dive into the details. I'm Yair Pinto, and this is your Boots on the Ground report about what is happening in Israel on the 429th day of the war against Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthi rebels in Yemen, and all the Shiite militias in Syria and Iraq. All of them are operating under the directives of Iran, the head of the axis of evil in the Middle East. A moment before we start, I want to invite you to find the subscribe button and click on it so that you'll never miss another episode of Boots on the Ground. I also want to tell you that today's video is sponsored by Arza Box. If you don't know Arza yet, please stay tuned because this is a great way for you to give a taste of the Holy Land to yourself or your loved ones this holiday season. Later in the report, I'll explain how you can do that, but first, as always, the news. The IDF has increased the pace of strikes on Hezbollah infrastructure located in Syria since the beginning of the ground incursion into Lebanon, and even more so after the ceasefire began late last month. But what has happened in the hours since the fall of the Assad regime and the rebels' entry into Damascus is extraordinary by any measure. IDF ground forces were quickly deployed across the border, capturing the strategic high ground of the Hermon mountain range on the Syrian side of the border. Israeli troops haven't been in these areas since the 1973 Yom Kippur War, but they've been deployed there now to ensure a buffer zone between the rebel-held areas and the Israeli territory. Residents of several villages in this new and hopefully temporary security zone have been instructed to stay in their homes until the situation stabilizes. Meanwhile, the Israeli Air Force is hard at work destroying the strategic weapons that the Assad regime had stockpiled mostly in Damascus so that they will not fall into the wrong hands. To give some background, the Assad regime developed various strategic capabilities over the years with the help of Russia and Iran. This included chemical weapons, ballistic missiles, and weapons production facilities. Israel cannot take a risk that these assets might be captured by the jihadist elements within the rebel coalition or anyone else who might not be a responsible actor. Thus, for the last 24 hours, Western and Arab media portals have been reporting on Israeli fighter jets flying over Syrian airspace, mostly in Damascus, and attacking these sites, including chemical weapons facilities. At the same time, according to Lebanese and Syrian media portals, the Air Force attacked a convoy of 100 vehicles, some armored, that crossed the border from Syria into Lebanon. According to the reports, this was a convoy of Hezbollah forces that retreated from the town of El Qusayr in the Shiite region of Syria back to Lebanon after the city of Homs and other towns in the region fell to the rebels. Positions formerly held by forces loyal to the Assad regime in and around the border region near the Israeli side of Mount Hermon have also been targeted so that they will never be used by potential hostile forces. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, which is an NGO that has long served as a spokesperson for the opposition to Assad, reported that Israel penetrated various areas in the rural region of Quneitra on the border using tanks and armored vehicles. It was claimed that Israeli forces approached civilian homes even in the village of El Hamadiyah, north of Quneitra. Meanwhile, the El Mazach airport near Damascus was attacked again, and there was also a strike on Jabal Qassoyun in the Syrian capital. Reuters learned that these strikes targeted Assad regime intelligence and customs buildings in the security square area of the Syrian capital, and videos from the scene show a huge fire breaking out in the area. Sources who spoke to Reuters noted that Israel attacked the main research center near Damascus, Sears, which has long been suspected to serve Iran in developing missiles. IDF Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Herzi Halevi visited a training center for recruits to the IDF's Golani Infantry Brigade on Sunday, telling them in prepared remarks that the IDF is fighting in 4 theaters in Judea and Samaria, in Gaza, in Lebanon, and as of last night, also in Syria. In a separate statement, the IDF admitted that forces are taking up commanding points in Syrian territory near the border to increase the security margin, and the political echelon approved the military's recommendations. The statement added that this is a defensive and temporary deployment of forces in the buffer zone, stemming from the fact that unidentified Syrian gunmen roamed the area over the weekend. The statement also said that the IDF is acting in coordination with other forces in the area so that there would be no friction. It should be noted that the rebel forces in southern Syria, which have taken control of the areas of the city of Dara to the Golan, are not from the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham organization, which is led by Abu Muhammad al-Julani, and the IDF is monitoring them as well. An IDF assessment on the matter said this is a loose association of different organizations with different outlooks. It should be also noted that the IDF's deployment on the strategic heights of the Syrian Hermon and the takeover of the buffer zone on the border were unanimously approved by the Political Security Cabinet. With this in mind, the IDF emphasized that it does not intervene in events taking place in Syria and will continue to act as long as required to maintain the buffer zone and protect the State of Israel and its citizens. According to media reports, the IDF sent warning messages to the rebel groups in southern Syria that for everyone's safety, it is important for them to keep their distance and not to cross the Alpha line from which the demilitarized zone begins. Meanwhile, United States President Joe Biden made his first statement on Sunday regarding the fall of Bashar al-Assad's regime in Syria, emphasizing the strategic and regional implications of the event. Biden stated that the regime has finally fallen and expressed uncertainty regarding Assad's exact whereabouts, estimating that he is most likely in Moscow. A short time later, on Sunday evening, a senior Kremlin official claimed that Assad and his immediate family were indeed in Moscow, where they have been granted asylum on a humanitarian basis. However, although we know where the Assad family ended up, the fate of other senior regime officials, including Bashar's brother and the commander of the elite Division 4, is less clear. The Assad family had friends in many countries and is rumored to have deposited money in banks all over the world so that they'll have a way to live comfortably in exile if they're ever needed to flee Damascus. We will probably never know what happened to all of them, and speaking for myself, I'm not very curious to find out. Other parties, including the Mossad and the CIA, will probably like to find these people so that they can have a chat and find out some things they've always wanted to know. And here at TBN Israel, we'll bring you whatever information ever comes to light about these meetings. For now, there's already some interesting stories coming to light, including an item about Assad's escape from Damascus, which was revealed by the Ukrainian intelligence service. According to a statement from them, Assad's flight from Damascus was accompanied by a mysterious incident that included the disappearance of an IL-76T cargo aircraft from monitoring radars. The aircraft, which was carrying the Syrian dictator on board, was rumored to have possibly been shot down or crashed. But upon further investigation, it appears that Russia created a deliberate media diversion to cover up the rescue operation of Assad and his close circle. Amidst all of this, Israel's political echelon is considering deepening the IDF's control inside the Syrian Golan Heights before someone else enters the created vacuum. Here at TBN Israel, we will continue to report on every development along the Syrian border. You can stay on top of our coverage by subscribing to this YouTube channel and regularly visiting our website, tbnisrael.com/news. If you want to support our work and help us create more content like this one, please click on the donate button on YouTube or visit our website. In Lebanon, Hezbollah has reportedly violated the ceasefire agreement, and the IDF has been busy responding to these violations. On Sunday, Hezbollah operatives were observed entering a weapons storage facility in southern Lebanon in violation of the understandings reached in the ceasefire talks, and this site was attacked by the Air Force. IDF ground forces also acted against Hezbollah activity in several areas of southern Lebanon over the past 24 hours. According to an IDF statement, the Israeli forces remained committed to understandings reached regarding the ceasefire in Lebanon, is deployed in southern Lebanon, and will act to remove any threat to the state of Israel and its citizens. With that in mind, it is important to remember that we are still within the 60-day ceasefire test period, in other words, a trial period. Residents of northern Israel have still not returned to their homes, but certain cities have started to return to normal life. Our team recently visited the city of Haifa to take a look around and meet some of the city officials and residents who are trying to put their lives back together following months of rocket attacks. We'll bring you that report in the near future, so stay tuned. But even before you see the report, you can probably imagine that life in Israel will not go back to normal so quickly. Months and perhaps years of hard work lay ahead of us, and a vitally important part of that hard work will include rebuilding the economy that allow people to make a living. Economic activity, especially in the tourism and agricultural sectors and in the areas near the Gaza border and in the Galilee, have taken a massive hit. You, our viewers, pray for Israel, and we know that many of you would love to come and visit the Holy Land and us and walk here on the footsteps of Jesus. We know you want to be a blessing for Israel, for its peace and prosperity, and we all hope to see you here again very soon as possible. But until then, you can help Israel by bringing a piece of it to your house. I'm talking about Arza boxes, locally produced handmade products filled with flavors, scents, and craftsmanship made by local Israelis. So ordering Arza boxes is not only a great gift to your loved ones or to yourself, it's honestly sending hope and comfort to our brave people, the people of Israel. Arza means in Hebrew, towards the land, and that's exactly what we're talking about. So please go to www.arzabox.com and don't forget to use our exclusive 10% discount by entering the code TBNIL, and together we'll be a blessing to Israel, to you, and to the entire world. And now let's get back to the news. An Israeli official said on Sunday that the IDF is considering a significant strike in Yemen following the launch of 2 ballistic missiles from that country at Israel in recent days. In the defense establishment, it is understood that unlike the Shiite militias in Iraq, which reduced its attacks over the past week, and despite pinpointed strikes in Yemen, the Houthis continue to launch missiles. Therefore, it is necessary to send a stronger deterrent message to them. Since the start of the war and the October 7 massacre, the Houthis joined attacks on Israel and fired missiles and UAVs, suicide drones, some of which managed to penetrate Israel's defenses and cause damage and casualties. According to the IDF data, more than 200 cruise missiles and UAVs have been launched from Yemen since the war began. In September, dozens of Israeli Air Force fighter jets attacked Houthi targets in Yemen, about 1,800 kilometers from the Israeli border, in a wide-scale aerial operation. In the IDF statement in September, it was written, "Through the infrastructures and posts that were attacked, the Houthi regime transfers Iranian weaponry to the area and supplies it for military needs, including oil." The attack was carried out in response to the recent attacks carried out by the Houthi regime against the State of Israel. In this context, it is important for everyone to understand that the cards in the Middle East have been reshuffled. The recent events in Syria expose Iran's growing weakness in this region. Hezbollah can also thank their Hamas allies for dragging them into a devastating war with Israel by launching the massacre of October 7, 2023. This has led directly to massive losses for Hezbollah and now the Assad regime in Syria, which were two of Iran's most important strategic assets in this region. The ability to move weapons and ammunition through Syria was, in particular, Iran's strategic backbone for moves against Israel. The fall of the regime in Damascus not only harms Iran's military capabilities, but also undermines its entire regional strategy. Now, with Turkey entering the arena and Israel threatening military intervention, Iran finds itself weaker and more isolated than ever before. Is this the beginning of the end for Iran's project in the Middle East? Only time will tell. Here at TBN Israel, we will continue to report on these developments moving forward. So please continue spreading the truth by sharing our videos on YouTube, subscribing to this YouTube channel, and following us on social media. If you'd like to support us, click on the donate button on YouTube or visit the website at tbnisrael.com/give. Now, we switch our focus to the Gaza Strip, where Hamas is in a deep crisis and efforts continue to return the hostages from Gaza to Israel, while the IDF and Israel work to strengthen security interests. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met with the hostages' families on Sunday and said, "The fall of the Assad regime, which also occurred thanks to our actions against Hezbollah and Hamas, may help advance a deal to return the hostages." On the Palestinian side, senior Hamas official Izzat el-Risha claimed, "We are close to announcing the terms of the ceasefire, but there are no official details yet." Hostage families in Israel are increasing pressure on the government, with many protests held across the country. The main goal to keep the hostages at the top of the national and international agenda. According to psychological warfare experts, Hamas uses hostage videos to destabilize Israeli society. Dr. Ron Shelfer, an expert in the field, explained that these videos are intended to fracture the Israeli society along fault lines by appealing to emotion and to the public. Hamas carefully selects the hostages to appear in the videos and the content to be recorded in order to maximize public and political pressure inside Israel. However, the IDF continues to strike Hamas and damage the organization's infrastructure. In a complex engineering operation in the northern Gaza Strip carried out over the last few days, IDF forces destroyed a tunnel network hundreds of meters long, alongside dozens of booby-trapped shafts and weapons. The IDF spokesperson stated that the operation aimed to disrupt Hamas's terror capabilities and maintain the security of southern Israel communities. In general, we can say that Hamas is facing heavy pressure in the military and political spheres. The organization has lost most of the forces as well as the weapons and military infrastructure that it had when it started this war, along with most of its allies. To sum up, the strategic battles that Israel must fight in order to survive in the Middle East must continue, but Israel finds itself in a stronger position than ever before. Efforts to return the hostages also continue, while Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran try to deal with the consequences of their mistakes. The collapse in Syria and the IDF actions in the Gaza Strip and in South Lebanon paint a picture of dramatic changes in the Middle East map, with the potential to reshape the region's balance of power. Speaking of the hostages, though, it is vitally important that we remember these are flesh and blood human beings. To help us remember this, let us take a moment to remember the Bibas family. 34-year-old parents Yarden and Shir Bibas, along with the two sons, 4-year-old Ariel and 9-month-old Kfir, were kidnapped from Kibbutz Nir Oz on October 7, 2023. The world was horrified to see the video of Shiri, her children in her arms, and the terrifying look on her face, surrounded by Hamas terrorists. They're among those who are still unaccounted for, although Hamas has tried to say that they were killed in an Israeli airstrike. Guys, please continue to pray for the Bibas family, as Shiri's parents were also among those murdered by Hamas on October 7th. I ask you to continue praying for peace in Israel. Pray for the peace of the IDF soldiers wherever they are, if they're fighting in the Gaza Strip, in Lebanon, in Judea and Samaria, or in Syria now. Pray for the peace of our hostages in Gaza, that they may return home soon and in good health. Pray for Israel, the people of Israel, the citizens of all our neighbors, if it's Syria, if it's Lebanon, if it's the Gaza Strip, all these people that are affected by these terrorist organizations. And don't forget to pray for this city behind me, for the peace of Jerusalem. And together, we will win this war because God is on our side.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.